Good evening. I'm Dan Jennings, and this is your Blue Wave report for March 11th, 2019. The President's budget has started to come out. We will discuss this over the course of the next week. This budget would include $100 million for daughter Ivanka's Women's Fund. The funds would come through the U.S. Agency for International Development Budget, an agency whose budget Trump had previously sought to cut. This move comes as the White House moves to cut spending to social safety net programs like Medicaid and Social Security by over $2.2 trillion over the next 10 years, which would break his 2015 promise. He also wants 5% across-the-board cuts to education and the EPA, all while increasing the budget for the American military complex and $8.6 billion for his vanity project. This weekend, a GOP congressman representing 40% of the border slammed Trump's fake emergency. Representative Will Hurd, the Republican out of Texas, whose district shares 820 miles of the U.S. border with Mexico, told CNN's Jake Tapper on Sunday that building a 30-foot-high concrete structure from sea to shining sea is the most expensive and least effective way to do border security. The Senate is expected to pass a resolution this week disapproving of Trump's use of emergency powers, with at least 4 Republicans expected to sign on. Regardless, Trump plans to use the first veto of his presidency in an effort to push on with his plans for the border wall, thus defying members of his own party. You can find an interactive list of statements made by GOP senators and their positions on this emergency on Politico.com. Please call your senator. Tell them to pass this resolution. And also, let's try to make it veto-proof. Down in Florida, the massage parlor owner peddling access to Trump apparently has ties to Chinese government-linked groups. I know, big shock. She is an officer of 2 groups with ties to China's communist government, and she founded a Miami-based nonprofit that promotes economic and cultural exchange between China and the West in coordination with Chinese leaders in the United States. Our intel community has said that China poses one of the most significant counterintelligence challenges to date. However, no direct evidence of any such activity has yet emerged. Yang was also tapped for senior roles in 2 other groups focused on China-related issues: the Florida branch of the Council for the Promotion of Peaceful Reunification of China, i.e. Taiwan, and the Miami chapter of the American arm of the Chinese Association of Science and Technology. Both organizations have direct links to China's Communist Party, and the CPPRC has been described as a vehicle for projecting Chinese influence in the West. One has to wonder, with all this new information linking Ms. Yang to high-ranking members of the GOP, why Ivanka Trump has been approved for numerous patents and her father for numerous copyrights by the Chinese government that had previously been denied. The Obama administration took 4 years to understand the global importance of the Bristol Bay, Alaska watershed and to recognize the unique recklessness of creating a huge open-pit mining operation there. However, consistent with Donald Trump's blasé attitude towards toxic contamination, his EPA has relegated that careful Obama-era review to the dumpster. If Trump and the Pebble Mine win, we will all lose. These fish support 14,000 jobs and annually generate $1.5 billion of economic growth. Some of them land right on our tables. In Donald Trump's EPA, however, poison wins, and a Canadian mining company called Northern Dynasty Minerals, which has for more than a decade planned to gouge a gigantic open-pit gold and copper mine into the headwaters of the region, where the rain first begins to conjure its salmon-making magic. This mining project would essentially put the rivers on a centuries-long poison drip, one that would far outlast any mining activities. Down in Florida, SB 168, a bill to mandate local officials to cooperate with ICE, goes to committee. Please follow Dustin R. Daniels on Twitter for information on who to call to fight this bill. And finally tonight, Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee's statement on the introduction of the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2019. This law would improve several important respects and take a holistic approach to the goal of eliminating the harm faced by victims of violence and making vital services accessible to the survivors of this scourge. For example, this iteration of VAWA contains guidance on the use of grants to activate judicial and law enforcement tools to develop and enforce firearms surrender policies, expands permissible use of grant funding for programs focused on increasing survivor and law enforcement, community safety, and provides legal assistance for dependent children in appropriate circumstances. It also updates programs designed to reduce dating violence, help children exposed to violence, and engage men in preventing violence against women. Additionally, the bill improves services for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. It provides policies, protection, and justice for young victims of violence, including extending the Rape Prevention and Education Grant Program, addressing bullying of young people, improving grants focused on prevention education for students, and expanding relevant training for school-based and campus health centers. It also reauthorizes and updates programs designed to reduce dating violence and to help children exposed to violence and engage men in preventing violence. This bill also recognizes the cascading ills associated with identifying, eliminating, and preventing the reemergence of domestic violence. It expands grants under the Public Health Service Act to support implementation of training programs to improve the capacity of early childhood programs to address domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking among the families they serve, preserves and expands housing protections for survivors, provides for economic security assistance for survivors by reauthorizing the National Resource Center on Workplace Responses, and protects employees from being fired because they are survivors of sexual assault or domestic violence. It also protects survivors' eligibility to receive unemployment insurance. Thank you to the following for stories used in tonight's report: MSN, NBC, Mother Jones, Medium, and Political. I'm Dan Jennings, reminding you as always,
don't just comment, act. Subscribe. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.